Happy Monday, Liberty lovers. And before we get into today's episode featuring a live stream I did with our good friend Remso W. Martinez, I wanted to remind you about the work we are doing with the amazing folks over at DonorSee, who have put together an incredible series of projects to help people affected around the world, particularly the third world, the poorest countries on the planet who are being affected by coronavirus and by the lockdowns, by the inability to get supplies, hand sanitizer, face masks, even basic food, and that sort of thing. People around the world are being affected by this in ways that you can't even imagine if you're someone who lives in the United States. And Lions of Liberty is doing its part by contributing 10% of our monthly donations from our patrons over at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. The fine folks who are members of the Lions of Liberty's Pride, who support this show and keep this thing funded. We are putting 10% of that money into helping Greg Glyer and DonorSee. So please do check out DonorSee's projects over at DonorSee.com/coronavirus, and be sure to get access to tons of extra audio and video content by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
Welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here's your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Mark Claire.
What's up, kitty cats? It is your hostess with the mostest here, and I am broadcasting from an undisclosed location at the moment. That's not important, but what is important is what's coming up for the next week of Lions of Liberty. There is so much going on, I can't even handle it. We're hosting not one, but two Libertarian Party presidential debates. The first one will be this coming Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. The second one will be this coming Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and these will be two separate debates featuring two separate sets of 6 candidates. I'm going to break them down for you really quickly. The first debate will be hosted by myself and Brian McWilliams and will feature Serene Ardalinu, Dan Taxation is Theft Bierman, Joe Jorgensen, Judge Jim Gray, Adam Kokesh, and Arvin Vora. Meanwhile, debate number 2 will feature Jacob Hornberger, John McAfee, John Mons, Sam Robb, Vermin Supreme, and Andy Williams Jr. Andy Williams was, of course, on Felony Friday a month or two ago, while Judge Jim Gray recently was on that program as well. Which reminds me that second debate will also be co-hosted by Felony Friday host John Odermatt. And I know what many of you are thinking. Where's Justin Amash? Didn't he just announce that he was running? Well, I am in contact with the Amash campaign. I am trying to see if I can get him into one of these debates, but I am at a very minimum going to be speaking with Justin Amash most likely in some audio form next week. So stay tuned for that. We'll get to whatever we can. Of course, he is, as you can imagine, bombarded with requests from all over the globe, but he has been on this program before. I did have a good relationship with his team. So we will be bringing Justin Amash into the fold as well as soon as we can. Both of these debates will be live streamed on our Facebook page. So you're going to want to make sure you follow facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. I will likely upload the whole video to YouTube later down the road, and of course they will both appear in this very podcast feed, so keep an eye out. We've got a lot going on. I've had a lot going on these last few weeks, being locked down in Los Angeles, where I recorded a whole bunch of live streams with various podcast friends of mine. One of those is a conversation you're going to hear today from our good friend Remso W. Martinez. Let's hear what he's got to say in the midst of all this COVID madness. All right, I am here live with a good friend, light stalker of the show, Remso Martinez, social media coordinator from the Washington Times, and he's here for another lockdown live stream. Remso, are you ready to roar?
Like inside, I am. Outside, I'm not feeling it, but I totally am on the inside.
Okay. I'm not exactly. Maybe we can parse down exactly what that means. Are you conflicted? By recent events? By some turns that society has taken as of late?
I'm just so confused. And I've been in one of those situations where, okay, let me tell you how my week was. I worked this week. I'm able to work from home. I woke up today around the same time I usually would. And I started working only to have several coworkers email me and say, why are you working today? It's your day off. So it's been a quite perplexing time for me, as it has been everyone else, but that's how things are going to be for the foreseeable future. So as disheveled, unshaven, tired as I may look, I'm excited to be here.
I think it's safe to say that like time and days and things like that don't have much meaning anymore. I mean, I guess there are probably a number of people who are still working normal jobs in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's I've been at home and I'm still keeping myself to a schedule of some sort and making sure I have an agenda every day, so I'm not just falling into a drift of Netflix binging or getting lost or just losing my mind in general. So I've been mentally quite well, actually, but it's more when I make the mistake of going on social media for a few minutes that things don't get as cheery.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been trying to get really good about leaving my phone somewhere in the house and actually distancing myself from it. And before yesterday, I had not left the house for 8 days.
Wowie.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Like I go on a walk around my neighborhood, but I'm not leaving the neighborhood, so to speak. So I've maybe seen like 6 or 7 other people, and it's been like a long continuous day. Like, for example, yesterday I went out, grabbed some errands. My local comic book store is trying not to go out of business, so I went over there. They're doing a massive sale, and I got this graphic novel. Usually it's pretty thick. It's about like 300-400 pages. I would stretch it out, savor it, read like maybe a couple pages, maybe a full issue's worth a day. I read it straight last night, and that was 3 a.m., and I wasn't even tired, so I didn't really even go to sleep till like 7 today. Then I slept for only a few hours, and then I was awake.
7 a.m.?
7 a.m.
Oh, that was just a few short hours ago. Well, I guess more short hours ago for me, but
yeah, it's just been like
you are not keeping on a regular schedule.
Or
maybe that is your regular schedule.
I'm struggling. Yeah. Like I'm not handling it well. I'm struggling.
I'm starting to wonder if this show is going to have to turn into the Remso pull him off the ledge session.
Yeah, no, I've been staying away from alcohol and everything. I've been trying to, get outside and do stuff, but I'm just, this is boring.
Yeah.
This is boring. I didn't realize how much like monotonous, I can't even freaking say the word. How many stupid things that I used to think were just pointless and time consuming, like going and taking my car to, go get gas, having to go, like blatant window shopping, having to go run errands for my girlfriends for work or something. Now it's just work and wait to work. And usually I consider myself a pretty, active person. I've got a lot of side projects and stuff I'm almost always working on, but all of that had to get put on hold. All my book signings for the remainder of the spring through the summer all got canceled. We were going to have The Witching Hour Season 2, the TV show I do with my brother. That was supposed to premiere a week ago. Now, none of our public access affiliates are accepting new content right now, so we don't know when that's happening.
It's already produced and shot. And
it's everything. Like, we thought, like, what if we just said, screw it, let's just put it all on YouTube. But I mean, we're disenfranchising a lot of people that only still watch those stations who don't, want to go on the YouTube where all the fun is at. So like we would be cutting ourselves off. But then again, like everyone's doing that right now. You look at a lot of movies that were supposed to make billions of dollars this year, and now they're just available on certain streaming networks. Like Onward was supposed to be Disney's biggest project of 2020, and now it's just available on there. Bloodshot with Vin Diesel, regardless of the fact that it wasn't like gonna make Marvel money, you still have Vin Diesel on top of the ticket. You still have a lot of good producers and stuff attached to it. It was in theaters for a week, and now the only way to watch it on demand is if you buy it. So like they're still trying to accommodate for that, but the entire entertainment industry and everything else has just been put in a state that we've never seen before. It's just completely dead still.
Yeah, let's talk about the entertainment industry, because obviously I'm out here in Los Angeles, and nearly everyone that I know is connected to the entertainment industry in some way, media production, sports production, which I work in, and it's all shut down, doesn't exist. And besides the fact that I'm actually, my biggest concern, of course, is all the people I know and their jobs, let alone the people that are trying to make it in that industry and supplement their, supplement that efforts by working in bars or restaurants. I mean, those people are all completely shut down too. I can't imagine. I'd hate to be someone who came out to LA with a dream in February of 2020, and just got their first bartending job and figured out, I can just make it by and try to break into the industry now. I mean, that person is probably already left or is just, miserable paying really high rent in a place where they can't make any money anymore. But I'm thinking on the larger scale, I mean, whatever entertainment exists right now is all that exists. Like nothing is being shot, nothing is being filmed. I'm sure they'll come up with creative ways to do more things in remote locations with more using green screens. I'm just wondering how this is going to shape entertainment and sports overall going forward, because it's really so hard to picture right now. It's really hard to picture anybody going to some giant sporting event where you're packed and crammed next to each other, regardless of what you think about the virus. I think the psychological effect that it's taking on people, that just from the propaganda and the media, and I'm not trying to downplay any real danger there is, but to me, it seems like the psychological effects of everybody suddenly feeling they have to be 6 feet away from people, not even touch their family and friends anymore. I mean, this seems like a contagion. That seems like the real contagion. That's not really going to go away, even if the virus death rates drop, even if we start to forget about it. I think psychologically, this thing is here to stay regardless.
Yeah, I mean, if this had only been something that happened for a week or so, we would have forgotten what it was like. After 2 weeks, I think I started to realize, okay, this is pretty serious. Now I've been essentially at home for a month, and it's just strange seeing how people are. When I went out yesterday, I did not see a single person without a mask on. It looks like those photos of smog infested Beijing.
Right.
And it's like, this is getting really weird. And the one thing I noticed is that it's remarkably quiet. I live only 25 minutes away from DC. Between me, I've got Alexandria, Reston, Arlington. This is a major commuter area. And I'm seeing animals standing in the middle of the road. They would never do that. Like deer out in the middle of the day, like something from I Am Legend. It's just so odd. And I went walking yesterday, and I went a little bit longer than my usual route. I went on this back road. There's only a church. It's middle of the country. It's quiet. It's wooded. It's away from all the major roads. So it's a nice pocket of silence. But the one thing I noticed was that there were a remarkably larger number of people that were actually walking. And the one thing I noticed was that if you were walking near somebody as they were approaching you from the other end of the sidewalk, they would get onto the road. It's social distancing. And I don't even think they're thinking about it. It's just become an automatic option. It's I see somebody, time to go on to the other side of the road. It's it's just odd.
Same thing. I noticed the same thing when people see you come in. It's almost like it's almost like they might look at you if you looked like a threatening person. If I saw someone across the street that looked scary and big and tough, I might maybe go to another side of the street. But now it's everybody looks at each other like that because, we're breathing. So who knows what might be coming out of us. And I can understand certain aspects of the logic of not wanting to spread a disease, wanting to protect the sick, wanting to protect the vulnerable. I can completely understand it. I mean, my parents are certainly in the very vulnerable category, and I don't want to go home and visit them for that reason. But at the same time, some of the things I see are so illogical and make no sense at all. When I see people here in LA, they issued a mask rule recently, and I'm not sure even exactly what it means. It went into effect on the 15th that you have to wear a mask in public. Well, what is in public? Is that just in a public place? Or are we talking about as soon as you leave your house, you're in public? Because to me, to be walking around your neighborhood in a mask is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Whether you're alone or with your family, you're with the people you live with, or you're just outside, you're not gonna get a virus, and you're not by just walking around. And it just drives me crazy to see. I actually saw people the other day that were driving around alone in their cars with the mask on. It's what possibly are you concerned about? Breathing your own virus back in?
Yeah, yeah. It's just I know who is not a carrier at this point. It's been long enough. I had several people that thought that they may have been exposed to somebody for a while. My family, my friends, everyone I work with thought that I may have been a patient zero. And it was one, I thought it was funny at first, but later on it became a very stressful period, because I was not only at CPAC back in February, but I met with Ted Cruz that morning.
Did you touch his hand?
And with it, I did not shake hands, luckily, but he gave me his cell phone to take a picture of him with somebody else. So, there was that 6 degrees of contacts thing, but
Ted Cruz self-quarantined that he never had.
He did immediately, didn't have it, but for almost 2 weeks, it was, oh, you were there, and oh, you were with Ted Cruz, because I left on Saturday. By Tuesday, that was when CPAC announced that there was a guy from New Jersey that was there and was apparently going around French kissing people, for all I know, grabbing everyone, and he was a positive carrier. And then on that Thursday, I was told not to come into work because everyone knew that I had been in contact with Ted Cruz. And at that point, I had no clue what was happening. And I go on Fox and I see that Ted Cruz self-quarantined. So for almost 2.5, 3 weeks, people are asking me, like, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? And I'm like, I'm fine. So it went from being something that was slightly ridiculous to growing. And then when that happened and everyone's like, you're sick, I'm like, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I'm not feverish. I had to go to the doctor for something that week, and I told them, and they ran me through, just the basic flu tests, like, how's your temperature, how's your sleeping, all that basic stuff. And they're like, well, you're not symptomatic, so you're good. We're not going to test you for this because, we don't want to just start handing out tests to everybody. So it was one of those situations where it began to slowly, creep in. And as soon as Washington, D.C. really shut down, that's when I realized, okay, this is something real. And now it's at the point where, I think I was quarantining myself a week before the general population did. Like, I know which of my friends are good now. Like, I was invited to go to a friend's house later, and we were just going to drink beer on his porch. And part of me was thinking, should I? And I'm like, well, why shouldn't I? He's not sick. I'm not sick. I'm not going anywhere in between. We should be good. But it's that thought process that keeps kind of bothering me during this thing. And I know it's bothering a lot of people right now, because in Virginia, we've got, certain people, a good friend of mine, who's I won't say his name because I don't want to get him in trouble or something, but he's a city council member. He's thinking about having a lot of people basically just show up to work and start reopening their local economy. He's not going to make it public, but he's basically like, we're just going to start going back to work. It's like, okay, I think you should be able to go back to work, especially, if you're good. But at the same time, I think that is going to freak a lot of people out. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying if you do that, like, stuff is going to happen that's going to be out of your control.
Right. It seems like the narrative of what we're trying to do by, forcing businesses closed, by keeping everyone at home, which in itself is silly. I mean, you shouldn't. It drives me crazy when I see this hashtag "stay the fuck inside," because being inside has never been an issue. In fact, it's better to be outside in sun, in the open air, where viruses don't hang out. A place they hang out is indoors, especially if you live with other people and they bring the virus in somehow. You're a lot more less likely to get it if you're spending more time outdoors than if you're spending more time cramped indoors with them. So just seeing the stay the fuck inside stuff drives me crazy. But I think it's part of this thing where I've seen this shift where this was first sold to us, or first sold to me anyway, the way I perceived it, as we have to shut everything down because we have asymptomatic carriers and we don't know who has it. So for that reason, we need to all separate, because you can have you can be asymptomatic and carry the virus for 14 to 21 days. So to me, while I disagree with any government force from the beginning, it still seemed like, okay, well, the idea is to separate for the 2 to 3 weeks so the virus doesn't go spreading asymptomatically around, so we make sure the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. That was the idea. But now here we are, where outside of New York City, hospitals are not overwhelmed. In fact, there are hospitals shutting down. I think there was an Army hospital set up in, I want to say, Washington, that they open it up, never saw a patient, shut it down. So there's clearly many places where this is not overwhelming hospitals. And that was always the sales pitch, not to make sure nobody ever gets sick, not to make sure nobody ever gets a virus. It was to make sure our healthcare system didn't get overwhelmed, so we didn't become, quote unquote, the new Italy. But that conversation has completely changed. That's not what now it's about. Every single politician is pretty much saying, we need to lock down until, or at least here in California, I mean, that's what the mayor is saying, that we can't really go back to normal or end these lockdowns until we either have a vaccine or herd immunity. Well, vaccine is not going to happen for 18 to whatever months. And even when it does, I don't want to take a vaccine. I'd rather, I'm in a health place where I'd feel more at risk by taking a vaccine that might harm my immunity in other ways than just by taking the risk I get the virus and that it passes through my body.
Exactly. I mean, I haven't had a flu shot since 2017 because for me personally, and it doesn't come from anything else that people usually think of when you say I'm not taking vaccines. My problem with vaccines was always when I got a vaccine, I always got the full on symptom and I was always worse off because of it. So I made the conscious choice not to get vaccines since. And since then, I have not had the flu in over 3 years. I've had like stomach bugs and stuff like that since, but I've never gotten the seasonal flu like other people. And
I don't think I've had the seasonal flu. And I mean, I'm sure I had it when I was a kid. I'm not even sure if I had vaccines when I was a kid or not. I don't remember.
Do you get the shots now?
No, I haven't had a shot of any kind. Well, in 2010, I went to go travel in some countries with some weird diseases. So I did get a few shots that were recommended for that at the time, including I got my MMR then, but I haven't had a shot since. I don't know if I'll ever get one again, to be honest. I've learned so much more about immunity and how to keep myself healthy that I would rather kind of take my chances with my own body and the things I do for myself and getting myself healthier than just jab myself with a needle every year out of the fear I might get one of a billion strains that they're making a vaccine for.
Yeah, like when in 2013 when I joined the Army, like I got anthrax shot and I still have the skin tag actually on my wrist. That's a reaction that happens sometimes. So it developed over about a week. So like my thing was, listen, like I've been inoculated for anthrax. I'm going to be okay from all these other things. But, years and years later, I kept having to get the shots and everything. And, with the vaccine right now, I would be skeptical of even people that I might trust who say, get this vaccine, because when you rush out anything, especially like this, it's going to have that possibility that it might not work. We saw this with swine flu when they were inoculating people for swine flu. The first round of vaccines and the nasal stuff that came out when swine flu hit around 2008, 2009, they found out several years later that wasn't actually the strain that was harming people. So we basically got inoculated for something else. I mean, the whole thing about flu shots and all this other stuff, it's, and I'm not an anti-vax person. My thing is, if you want it, go get it. I'm not saying people shouldn't. I don't believe that we should give children like as young as 2, like 13 million shots. But my thing is, understand that when you get a flu shot, you're not getting inoculated for that specific strain. You're getting inoculated for the assumption that will be the strain. It's like basing what you got to inject yourself with based off the results of a roulette wheel. So I'm going to be
maybe a 20 to 30% chance, even if the vaccine is 100% effective for the flu, that there's a 70 or so % chance you're going to get one of the other strains if you did even get a flu in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, there's no guarantee. People who for example, my brother, he's 21. He got the chicken pox last August. At 21 years old, he got the chicken. So
he never had it as a kid? Did you have it as a kid?
Never. No one.
Oh, wow. See, I had it as a kid. It was one of those things. I don't know if they do it still now, but no, they didn't put me in a room with other kids. But
expose them young so that way they don't get it.
It was the kind of thing where you knew you had it. Other kids in your class would get it. Y'all went home for a week, and you're never going to have it again.
Yeah. The problem was, though, we checked his shot record. He got the shot for chickenpox.
When he was a kid?
When he was a kid.
Because I think the shots aren't effective for life necessarily either. Obviously, or perhaps at all in his case.
I mean, we don't know. The doctors were like, he should have been fine. But that was like, what do you mean he should have been fine? The thing either works or it doesn't. Should he have gone back for it? I mean, we had this discussion with his doctor, and it was just so weird. But I mean, he got chickenpox at 21, and he was down for the count. I never thought it was as bad until I saw what it was doing to him, because it's
supposed to be much more brutal to adults, which is why they try to get kids to just get it, or why they used to. Now I guess maybe they're pushing the shots more. When I was a kid, it was just like, known you're going to get chickenpox at some point. Some other your friends are going to get it at the same time. We'll keep you home. We'll put some stuff on you so you're not too itchy. And then, your body's going to get rid of it and you're never going to get it again.
Yeah. And now because he got it as an adult, he's more susceptible to shingles years later. So, I mean, here we are. We trusted a vaccine that was supposed to have taken care of it for whether it was life or just for a long duration. We thought that by the time you're an adult, you would be immune to it if you were inoculated as a kid. Turned out that wasn't the case. So now he's been freaking out because as soon as he recovers from chickenpox, this stuff happens. Mm-hmm. So it's been he's been very paranoid about it, and I mean rightfully so. I think the biggest thing that we need to understand is that if we had just been more sanitary, we probably would have been fine. Because I don't believe what we're doing now is really flattening this curve. I mean, it doesn't even make sense when I've looked at it, and I've seen everything from what the CDC is saying to what Fauci is saying, and Fauci bothers me. Because he's saying, oh, we need to lock down for a year and give people immunity cards, and we might see this seasonally. It's like, dude, if this is something that we're going to have to live with, here's the thing. We can't just live in our house waiting for the government to like each other enough to go ahead and cut checks that barely cover what we need. It's like we need to move on eventually. So whether that's now or later, I believe that if you were going to get this, you were going to get it. Nothing anyone can do can stop it. It's just one of those things that we genuinely have no control over. We can mitigate it, but we can't control it at the end of the day.
You can do basic things. I mean, if you're concerned about germs, like I've always been the opposite of a germaphobe. I've always kind of been like probably gross in some ways. Like I've always just had the attitude like, yeah, I'm going to get germs. They're going to pass through my body. Sometimes maybe I'll get sick. Sometimes I won't, but I'm not really that sick very often. And I know people that are super paranoid about germs and are always, doing every little thing that you're supposed to do. And this is all anecdotal, but to me, they kind of seem to get sick more than I do. I don't know. I don't know if there's any, scientific truth to that or not, but I don't think it makes a major difference. I'm sure doing basic things like washing your hands, not touching your face after touching doorknobs and things like that are probably smart things to do to not spread germs. But for the most part, unless we're just going to stop interacting as human beings, like germs and viruses are going to spread, and we should do everything we can to protect people that are vulnerable, that are, potentially could be harmed by this. But we should have been probably doing that on the voluntary individual level more for the flu too before, because that kills people as well. So maybe we should have more of a better attitude towards not going around the elderly when we're sick or even feeling slightly sick, things like that. But at the same time, you have to let the vast majority of people who will, if they get this virus, will get sick or will, in more likelihood, it seems, not get sick, or will just be asymptomatic and just pass it along. It's got to get through our society one way or another. Again, here in the Governor Newsom in California said, has this multi-state pact. Suddenly, states' rights are a whole thing now for him. And I kind of like the idea, if it wasn't for my knowledge of how they're going to do things. And the reason they're doing this is because they don't want to go by Trump's plan to start reopening things by May 1st and by his steps. They want to have their own steps. And, at first when I saw this thing, they came up with this pact and this plan to reopen. I thought, okay, a plan to reopen is at least something more than I'd heard before, until you read the plan. And it's just 6 vague points that you basically can never meet until it's basically until we can guarantee no one gets sick, we can't reopen. I mean, it's not quite as ridiculous as that, but it's pretty darn close. It seems very, very difficult to achieve. And he even said we're not going to have, or this is actually the LA mayor now, Garcetti, said that we're not going to have sporting events, concerts, or anything like that until next year at the earliest, because we need to achieve herd immunity or a vaccine before we can do anything like this again. And to me, it just seems like this is crazy, and this is not even. I'm not trying to downplay it, because it is bad for certain people. There's no doubt about that. I think there's enough evidence to say that it is something worse than a regular cold, or even a regular flu. But at the same time, you walk outside and there's not, people's heads aren't exploding. You'd think that people were vomiting blood in the street. You'd think that this is just sitting out there in the air, infecting people by the way people are acting. And that's so obviously not true. I mean, and there just seems to be so much fear that people have that is leading to just irrational behavior, like reporting people who are in a park, a family in a park, who's going to go home and be in their house together too. It's absurd. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is not Ebola.
Bird flu.
I mean, this is, you look at, other other health pandemics like this from just the last
Remember flesh-eating
50
virus? Were you around for
years
that
alone.
one?
Let's
That
say the
one
last
sounded
50
way
years. We had the
scarier.
AIDS
Oh, yeah.
epidemic.
I don't
We
know
had
when it was. Maybe it
Ebola.
was.
We had
Maybe
SARS.
it was a
We
long
had
time ago.
swine
Maybe it was over 10
flu.
years ago.
We had
There was this
the
flesh-eating virus going around.
West
I think
Nile
you could get it
virus,
by, on
like
your skin,
bird
into your
flu,
blood or
mad cow
something. Nothing you
disease.
could
Like
just
we
breathe
had a
in. But it
lot
was
of
this
stuff.
thing that
What
started.
I'm more
It's pretty
worried
literal.
about
Just started eating
now
your
is
flesh, and I remember
what's
that
going to
was a
happen.
big scary thing in the news for a while.
Oh, that
All of
is
those
terrifying.
sounded way scarier than this. Most of them, anyway. Definitely Ebola. Definitely, swine flu sounded at least just as bad.
So, oh my God. This is just. Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people really understand what this is. What this is, it's just a very aggressive flu. And when you look at what people are actually dying from, that's why the whole, or do you have a weakened immunity thing? Are you elderly? It keeps being brought up. All this does is it basically opens up your immune system to other things. So people aren't really dying from COVID-19. They're dying from an upper respiratory issue. They're dying from extreme fever. They're dying from pneumonia. So it's the cause for those things to happen, but COVID-19 alone will not kill you. That's why like more than half of the people that have gotten it have been asymptomatic. They might have felt bad for a few days, but other than that, they were able to do well. I mean, you compare the United States to most of the world, and it varies by state, but we're genuinely really freaking sanitary. I've been to other countries and other places where they have like no standard of sanitation. And I think we were better off to go ahead and take care of ourselves for this than anyone else. That's why you look at the difference between Wuhan, China, where it was basically in the middle of nowhere. They didn't even have a hospital. And then Washington, D.C. Washington declares state of emergency. FEMA is basically in charge. They have people there who have it. It's under a few hundred, and a couple have died from it. But they were also elderly, and they had a series of prior health issues. So when DC, and people can say what they want about DC, yeah, it's a very rundown place when you look at their infrastructure, but they're doing pretty good compared to everywhere else where this has happened. And the thing that bothers me is when people, throw out like numbers porn. It's like millions of people. It's like, okay, well, you spread millions across billions that much. And in the United States, they're like, a few weeks ago, they're like, 200,000 people have confirmed coronavirus in the United States. I'm like, wait a second, 200,000 people is the population of my hometown in Arizona.
What to believe in terms
like
of
it's just a small border town, 200,000 people.
People studying, honestly,
that's you take that small town population spread across the country, you look at maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand per state.
Very recently, I think
like
there's a couple cases where they're just mass testing.
That's not that terrifying
to see, and in those cases, from a couple cases I've seen, it does seem that it's possible that a lot more people have the virus than we realize, which is actually would be, if it were true, would actually be a good thing, because if a lot more people than we realize have it, then that means it's a lot less deadly than we even thought. Because before that, they're probably just testing people, not probably, I mean, I know for a fact, for a long time, they were only testing people that were so bad that they had to be hospitalized or that met a certain level of sickness. I mean, I know a lot of people that thought they might have it and went to try to get tested and could not get tests. So who knows? Maybe they had it, maybe they don't. We'll never really know. But when they're only testing the people that are sick enough to be hospitalized, in many cases, I mean, when that's your sample size, the death rate will, of course, seem a lot higher because you're only getting those people that got to that extreme point. Whereas there's probably so many people that either didn't have symptoms at all, or they had a bad cough, a bad cold. I mean, even if I do get sick, even if I have a really bad sinus infection or something for a week, I just hold myself up in bed for a week. I don't even consider going to the doctor unless I've never been once at a point where I've been so sick that I thought I had to go to a doctor. Really. Although I will admit, I did actually have a very slight corona scare this year, just because I suddenly got a fever and I got really sick, but it was just to my stomach, which I knew this was not a corona thing. And I eventually did, after a couple of days, just because the stomach pain was still with me, I go to a doctor and they said, they said, we wouldn't have even let you in this building if we thought you had symptoms of coronavirus. And none of my symptoms were that, but just because I broke into a fever, and I can't remember the last time I broke into a fever. I did get a little paranoid for a couple of days, but I actually, once it started hitting my stomach, I said, okay, that's good, because that's not coronavirus. I'm just going to go throw up a little bit and I'll be fine. But after I was just saying I never get sick, but that was I can't remember being sick with a fever in a decade before that at most. at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Andrew. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Andrew Cuomo has been repeatedly saying it. He's like, as you hear numbers go up, don't think those are new cases. When we test more people, we're going to find more positive people. So don't let it freak you out that much. I'm more concerned about like what's going to happen economically, because I think we're gonna. I mean, that next recession, it's here. It's only a matter of how bad it gets, and I think people need to remember the difference between a recession and a depression. A depression is when you lose your job, but I mean, this is. I don't think when we look back at this and we start to see the jobless rates, the unemployment, the drastic effects it's going to have on people's livelihood, I don't think people are going to look back and say, oh, yeah, that still justifies it. I think we're going to think that we overreacted to this.
Hey there, Liberty Kitties. Time to take a quick time out to tell you about one of our long-time supporters. His name is Tyler Colford, and he goes by the pseudonym Crypto Man. That's his rapping name. That's right. He is a rapper as well. He does some awesome stuff, and he recently produced a track called Free Ross. And the Ross in question is, of course, Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the Silk Road Marketplace, who was sentenced to 2 life sentences for creating that marketplace. Yes, it was a black market indeed of all sorts of things, including drugs, consensual transactions, which libertarians are completely in favor of. There were no victims and there were no crimes as far as we're concerned. So please do check out the track Free Ross. It was just released on Friday, March 27th, the 35th birthday of Ross Ulbricht. And 100% of the proceeds will go to the Free Ross Foundation, which is helping to free Ross and bring more awareness to his situation. Do check out the links. I will put them all over at lionsofliberty.com/freeross for ease of use. You can also pre-order it on Google Play. Again, 100% of the proceeds of this track will be going to help free Ross.
Still wonder why there's an overpopulation in the prison system, persecuting crimes when there is no victim. Parents doing time, separating children, perpetuating crime to a future generation.
I do see this trend of people that seem to, anybody like you or I who even brings up or tries to acknowledge the fact that there is massive destruction that comes with the economic damage of just shutting down businesses like this, that we don't care about lives, or we don't care, we just want people to get sick, and we don't care how things shake out. And that's, to me, I could say the same thing about them. If I wanted to presume they had bad intentions, I hope people presume I have good intentions when I'm putting forward my opinion on anything. But I could say the same thing. Well, I guess you don't care about all the people that are factually going to commit suicide when the economy gets worse. I think there's been some metric. They even say, like, as unemployment goes up a certain amount, there's a number of suicides that tend to always increase with that amount. So unemployment is, every week we're seeing like another 5 million added to the unemployment. How many of those people are going to be in such despair that they either commit suicide or they get so depressed and down and their health deteriorates and they're at more risk of being sick now? When you're stressed and you are worried all the time, you're at a much higher, your body just reacts in a way that you're much more susceptible to being sick than when you're healthy and happy. So many less people are going to be healthy, less happy, and more stressed out. And now they're staying inside, not getting sun. I think we're adding so many things to the elements of why people get sick, both physically and mentally in the first place, that it seems like there's just an exponential ball that can't even be stopped if they just flip a switch tomorrow. Even if they flipped a switch now and said, just kidding, this was all an overreaction, we really messed up, go back to normal. There's already been so much damage done that I'm not even sure how. I mean, I'm sure there are many small businesses that have gone under already or are about to, they're not going to suddenly have money to reopen up again when this all comes back, or to whatever extent it does.
Yeah, I mean, Warren Buffett always says, be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. We're seeing that right now. But what some of the things that bothered me last year when Andrew Yang was running, and I'm saying this in a positive light to him, he mentioned, we're going to see a massive acceleration in automation, a massive acceleration in income disparities, and people not being able to move up as they typically would in a normal capitalist system. I think his assessment of that was actually really spot on. And if anything was going to propel that faster, it's definitely this. Yeah, all those essential grocery store stockers, thank you for your service right now and for still coming to work and everything. most people would just call it doing your job. But like, thank you for doing that. How are we going to thank you after this? I think if you were laid off, you're not coming back. If you were afraid of the automated kiosk or self-checkout register before, meet your new coworker, because that's happening with truckers right now and everything. And I want to see the number of truckers that have gotten into accidents. I actually genuinely believe that more of that has happened, even though there are less vehicles on the road, just because we're working these people to death right now. I think we're going to start seeing automated semis very soon. I mean, this is going to happen. The other thing that also worries me is I think we're also going to see a lot more businesses say that they're not accepting cash payments for things. I think everything's going to have to be done wirelessly or through a card. So I think, this whole idea of, we're going to give more sick days to workers and we're going to have more employee benefits and we're going to raise the minimum wage. I think that's something people are saying right now because it's a feel-good type of thing. But everything shows that when things are good, people are going to start taking care of themselves again. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. The thing that really bothers me are the number of small businesses. Small businesses account for 60% of working Americans in the United States. It's been going down every decade since the 60s. I mean, it's going to get to the point where a lot of those businesses are not going to come back. So, the idea of living the American dream, being an entrepreneur, starting a small business, you're either going to have to get really good at soft skills, technical skills that you could do remotely, or you're going to have to go work for a company or a corporation. Once they take that place, they're not coming back.
That is the trend that, while I didn't agree with Andrew Yang's policy prescriptions in any way, shape, or form, he was completely accurate in pointing out a problem that no matter what your political beliefs are, this is a thing that's going to happen. And I'm of the belief that in the long term, automation is beneficial to all of us. I don't support a UBI or anything like that, but we still can believe that and still recognize that certain people are going to be at least short term hurt by losing their jobs to automation. And something like this, I mean, this is the number one perfect excuse, perfect reason for any companies that were on the verge of automating certain things that were previously done by people or groups of people. I mean, that necessity and that desire to automate has gone from maybe we'll look at it to we have to do that now because we're going into this world where we can't be around people and we can't have people in big groups. Because even if we get over coronavirus, now this is there in the psychology. So now they're going to think, okay, well, this coronavirus thing passed through, but what about the next one? We're going to have to do all of this again. So now we need to be prepared. So any sort of advancements towards automation are going to accelerate so much more now than they already even were. If there was anybody that was on the fence about whether to automate, they're not going to be on the fence anymore, especially if they're in the process of laying people off. And I do think you're right. I think we're going to end up with basically a two-tiered society in a sense, basically two career paths you can take, because as I think one effect that, as you pointed out, of all of this is that the really, really big boys, the big corporations that can take on 14 extra sick days and all of this stuff, they're going to be fine. Amazon's doing great. Walmart's doing great. But the local stores here and there, they're done. I mean, they're probably not going to come back. Those guys might have to go work at Amazon, go work at Walmart. And that's going to be a shift we're going to see. Like you said, people are going to have to actually get certain jobs, whatever jobs remain at giant corporations, as all these small businesses continue to go under and can't really fight their way through lockdowns. Or there's going to be people who are entrepreneurial and are able to set aside a certain set of skills, hopefully podcasting being one of those, that lets them work remotely, lets them not have to rely on going somewhere or being beholden to a large corporation.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I really hope a lot more people really start to pay attention to the fact that we are really a country that was running off of borrowed time on things. When I look at all the apocalyptic scenarios for how the downfall of society was going to be, what this showed me was that it would happen way faster, because how many people didn't have at least a month's supply of food or a few weeks supply of food? I think the metric is we're all 9 meals away from starvation. When you actually look at how much food you should have stored. Do you have guns? Gun sales went up drastically. I mean, I remember what actually traumatized me as a kid, and this is before I really got politically minded about things. I think I was like 10 or 12. In Virginia, in Fairfax County, we had a week-long power outage. No power in the entire county. Couldn't watch TV, couldn't charge your phone, couldn't refrigerate stuff. The power was out. And after a couple of days, the power came back, but it came back sporadically throughout the county. And I remember on like the third or fourth day, we were able to watch our TV and we were watching the news, and they had these cooling centers where basically they were massive air conditioned gyms and rec centers and stuff like that. And we didn't see sick people, poor people. We saw like middle class suburbanites going to these cooling centers with their iPad and their phone and a little battery pack charging stuff. They were all fighting over outlet space. And there was this woman, she was probably in her 40s. She was actually a teacher at my local high school. They interviewed her and she said, I don't know what would have happened if I couldn't charge my iPad. I was freaking out.
What would have happened?
Yeah, and that bothers me. It's like these well-to-do, middle-class suburbanites were losing their shit. And everyone's freaking out. Oh, I don't have extra food. Oh, well, how was I supposed to heat my water and keep stuff cool and stuff like that? It's like
these are the same people that would laugh at you if you stored up, it's cases of canned food in your closet.
Oh, they were always like my family. We started prepping after that, but it's like, you guys are afraid of the apocalypse or the zombie doomsday or something. But it's like, well, if something does happen, I'm
afraid of you people who don't prepare, who are going to lose your minds.
I have been genuinely more afraid of my neighbors during this time than anything else. Because after a few weeks, especially when the toilet paper started getting rationed and everything else, and the internet bandwidth was going down a little bit, I looked around at people and they got paranoid because now they're thinking like, shit, how are we going to do stuff? How will I watch my Netflix if they're taking up all the internet? It's like that really showed me how easy we are to kill. Imagine right now, if someone was really that nefarious, if they want to take out the United States, right now would be the best time. Take out our power grids.
Oh God,
do that.
Give them ideas.
We would. Somebody's already thinking this. All this just showed me is that, I prepared for the worst, not because I wanted it to happen, but because at least I know if it did happen, I'd be okay. And that's not something I take a lot of solace in, but this has really shown people, it's like, this is a sample of what happens. Now imagine if the grocery stores only filled up every other day.
Right.
Like, people really need to start looking at this. Dave Ramsey, his biggest thing for his baby steps is always make sure you at least have $1,000 in cash. Mm-hmm. It's like, how many people did not even have $1,000 in liquid cash? Like, we were living on borrowed time.
Think about these stimulus checks of $1,200, which I'm certainly not getting one, but there's such a joke to me. I mean, if someone gets helped by it, congratulations. I'm not gonna fret over it. It's such a small amount of money compared to all the terrible things that government spends money on. But if someone's in the situation where $1,200 helps them so much, then that same person is gonna need that $1,200 in a month. It's not gonna last very long.
They were doing bad before this whole thing. All this showed them was that this is what happens when you have a lifetime of either bad opportunities or mistake. I'm not gonna say everyone was just financially irresponsible, but it comes to the point where it's like everything that's not this right now is borrowed time. Mm-hmm. Because this is game time and a lot of people are failing.
And I'm someone who has that mindset, who has the mindset of always having, 6 months of savings, always being prepared. And even I feel like, wow, am I really as prepared as I should be? So I can't imagine someone that never even had that mindset before and maybe was just thought everything's always going to be fine. I'm always going to go to the grocery store. I'm always going to have food. And now suddenly they're faced with this idea of, wait, there's certain items I can't get. What's going on? Because now you're seeing grocery stores start to ration because as there's changes in the supply chain, maybe they have the product, but they see it slowing down. So now they have to ration a little bit. And this is just going to keep going and going until, I still go to the stores and can't find a single paper product in any store around me.
Yeah. I mean, if you were investing in bidets, you must be making a killing right now, folks.
Yep.
But I mean, just that alone, like the toilet paper thing. And I mean, I don't know why people were hoarding it. We don't have a supply issue. The stores are getting supplied daily. It's not like there's a lack of toilet paper that's being manufactured.
It seemed like an odd thing for everyone, for the one thing that everyone rushes for. It wasn't even water. It wasn't even canned food. It was the toilet paper.
I think a lot of mania had contributed to that because somebody saw somebody buy more than what would be considered a normal amount of rolls. And then they're like, well, if they know something, I should do it. And then somebody else saw that. And then we all didn't say it, but we were all like, well, I saw other people hoarding it and I don't want to be left out in the situation.
Right.
It's been so strange seeing how that happens. And it's one of those things where I think, everyone said after 2008, that's the worst it's ever going to get. And now we're in a situation where we're not only going to have a financial crisis, but now we're having a health crisis on top of it. This is going to happen. This is going to happen again.
It's seeming more and more clear every day that to whatever extent the health crisis is real, I'm certainly not downplaying it for anybody sick. I'm certainly not downplaying it for New York City. But to whatever extent it's real, the economic damage is going to be so much worse and going to only compile on top of it. And the worst part about all this that really drives me crazy is despite all the economic destruction that's going on, which will result in many people dying, quite possibly and quite probably, I would even say many more than will die just from the virus. The worst part about all this, we're still going to have the virus. It's not going to disappear. It's not going to disappear because we destroyed the economy. It's not going to say, oh, thanks for locking down for two months and destroying your economy, guys. I'm going to go away now. No, it's still going to be floating around. It's still going to spread around to people. We're still going to have to achieve herd immunity in some way. And that's not going to change with these lockdowns. All it's going to do is push the curve or, push it out or make it take longer. In many ways, I'm concerned that this flattening of the curve is really just lengthening the line or whatever you want to say. Because especially now, as I said earlier, the conversation has changed. First, it was we need to socially distance to flatten the curve so our healthcare system doesn't get overwhelmed. But now that's not even the conversation anymore. Now the conversation is we need to stay away from each other forever until we have a vaccine, or we're going to have to lock you in your homes or perhaps come and remove your sick family members. I mean, the way this escalated in like a month is just mind-blowing to me. And that's when my conspiracy mind does start to go crazy a little bit. There's that side of it, and then the other side of me that just thinks, well, politicians are politicians, and they only have a hammer, so they're going to see nails everywhere. So they're just going to call for force, because what else do they have?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing isn't like we're going to be talking about this for a while. And this is only going to sprout up other issues. I mean, on a macro level, what I want to do is this is something I'm kind of working on in my free time. I want to start collecting data now so I could write a paper about this later. But I'm looking at the economic impact for certain consumer industries. What we're seeing right now is I think GameStop, this is my prediction, my personal prediction, by the year 2022, GameStop will not exist. You will only. You're
saying this as I believe you're from. Did you work at GameStop?
I worked at GameStop.
You did? Okay.
I worked at GameStop. I did.
I listen.
I was a GameStop cashier for a little bit, and I can tell you right now, everyone at my local GameStop I used to work at got laid off. GameStop.
You would think, if anything. I mean, I think it's because they were largely considered a non-essential business, so they're shut down in a lot of places. Is that right?
Well, they were considered essential, but the problem was GameStop corporate issued something down to all their stores and regions saying you have to make sure that you have no more than like 10 people in the store. So that way we don't get the government freaking out at us, because a lot of state governments actually considered GameStop an essential business because at least video games would keep people indoors. What happens was you had a lot of managers, and I met some dumbass managers during my time. There were a lot of managers that were not abiding by that. They weren't offering curbside service. They were having just swarms of people in the store. They weren't cleaning stuff. People need to understand, like most of my time when I was working at GameStop, I was cleaning stuff because people come in, they touch everything, they cough on shit, they throw things around. There was just a lot of cleaning that was involved, and they were barely doing that. So what GameStop corporate did was they told most all their stores to shut down, and now what they're doing was instead of just furloughing or laying people off, now they're actually going to close like 300 stores permanently right now. So I think GameStop, which has been going downhill for a while, I think by 2022 they're completely going to not exist. And right now with comic book stores, the comic book store industry has been on a decline for years, despite massive licensing sales for toys, figures, video games, TV shows, movies. The actual print comic book has not been doing very great. It's seen better years more recently, but overall it's been a declining industry. I think the biggest problem right now with comic books, and I think this will be something that will interest people on different levels, but one of the problems is Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, they were all publishing through one printer called Diamond Publishing. And last month, Diamond basically said, because we can't ensure that we're going to have a safe, clean environment for our employees, we're going to have to stop printing comics until this whole thing is over. So Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, they're not coming out with any new stories. But what they were thinking about doing was just doing direct-to-digital comics, which means you can only buy a certain comic digitally. You won't be able to get it through print. Print is how these stores make money. And when you look at the number one seller of print comics over the past decade and a half, it's been Marvel Comics. So a lot of these independent comic book stores were only dependent on one publishing brand alone. So now what you've done is you've taken one, you've taken two, you've taken three, Marvel, Dark Horse, DC, and they have recently pledged that they're not going to do direct to digital, but they can always just, renege that whole thing. I think right now what we're going to see is the traditional brick and mortar comic book shop after this. I think it's going to become, if it was an endangered species before, it's like on Harambe levels now. Right. Like it's not going to be the same after this. And especially I think that's
because if these comic book stores are relying on, basically Marvel sales to be able to stay open, and then they suddenly can't stay open, and now all these other maybe smaller comic book producers that might be, selling their indie comics to like local stores, now they have hardly anywhere to go, where the one place they might have gotten some buzz and some word of mouth by people talking to each other, well, now that's gone too. I think at some point you're just going to see like you're going to have to buy digital games, digital comics. If you want to go in person, maybe you'll take a trip to the Marvel Megastore one day, where you stay 10 feet apart, and maybe you can get a very rare limited edition print of something. But it seems like everything that can be delivered digitally, that's delivered and digital combined into one word is delivered digitally. You're going to see that happen. I mean, now more than ever. And I think that who's going to be hurt? Again, it's the small comics book shops. It's the GameStops. It's all these small businesses that are getting crushed, whereas these big ones will survive and even thrive, because now people that are left need to get jobs somewhere, and people still need to get their stuff from somewhere, whether it's their groceries from Walmart or their comic books directly from Marvel. I mean, this trend seems to be the same across the board.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at that one thing alone, I think it's more interesting for me because it's more personal for me. I'm a giant nerd, but I know the owners of almost every comic book store between where I'm at in Virginia through New Jersey. Like, they're all suffering. Kevin Smith's comic book store, The Secret Stash in Red Bank, New Jersey. Even Kevin Smith is like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay in business after this. When Kevin's freaking Smith is like, I don't know. A ton
of money who could probably afford to just pay to keep it open for some amount of time, whereas most comic book shop owners probably can't afford a month without income.
Exactly. Like when he starts freaking out that he can't sell comics, that's a problem. And
especially like, are people going to even want to, at least to the extent that people are really concerned about a virus, go into a comic shop and touch a bunch of different comics? That's one of the places where people are truly browsing and truly touching a bunch of things, flipping through things, putting them back. I mean, it seems like any business that requires people to be in there touching things and grabbing things is going to suffer. Again, regardless of the extent of the actual severity of the virus, because this has become psychological now.
Yeah, I mean, part of me have been thinking, like, everyone's trying to stress, order takeout, pay 20%. It's like, wait a second. Why would I want someone else touching my food? I don't know the condition of their kitchen. I don't know if they wash their hands. That's a lot of trust.
The other day I was driving around, and it really just dawned on me when I passed a park that had just benches taped off, and so that's bad. Can't do that. Might get a virus, I guess. And on the same car ride, I passed a McDonald's with a drive-through line all the way around the building. But that's fine. That's okay. I'm not saying they both shouldn't be allowed. I'm saying they both should be allowed. But how can you tell me going to the park is bad, but having your food prepared by someone and eating McDonald's overall, which is obviously going to be bad for your body, bad for your immune system, that's okay. It just makes no sense at all.
Yeah, this whole thing is just
wild.
I don't think we're gonna look back at this and think, yeah, that made sense. Right now, we don't even think a lot of this makes sense. But a few years from now, we're gonna be thinking, wow, we really did cut our nose to spite our face on this one.
The real problem is that no matter what happens, the people that are pushing for lockdowns and all of the sort of thing, they have kind of all the cards. They kind of have an out either way. Because if things get better and this thing fades away, they'll say, see, look what we did. We did the lockdowns. We kept you all separated and everything worked out. Or if it gets worse, they can also say, we told you we had to lock more. Now we need to do even more. Now we need to keep you really in your homes 24/7. And maybe we'll give you a delivery of food and your UBI check once a month if you're good.
I mean, government's the only thing that can royally screw up and grow bigger as a result of this. I was actually okay with the idea of the relief checks going out because the way I saw it, the American people needed a bailout because this was a government issue. This was their fault. They were telling people to stay at home. They were the reason why people were losing their jobs or losing their income. So I was like, if anyone owes anyone money, the government owes us our money, even if it is at the end of the day them just giving their money back.
There's somewhat of an argument to be made that if the government is causing everything with the virus and causing the shutdowns, then the people that are being affected by it are the victim. I can see that argument in some way. The problem is, of course, we're taking from the victim to do it too. So,
yeah, I mean, the whole thing is backwards. Well, in this case, like we didn't even return money. We just printed more. So it's almost like a double FU because we just inflate the currency.
Even to that end, the amount of that last bill that was passed that is actually checks to people is so minuscule.
It was less.
$25 million to the Kennedy Center, $25 million to congressional salaries. It's all this other nonsense.
On the one thing that should have, the one thing that should have been as simple as possible, they looked at it and they're like, well, how do I benefit from this? Steve Mnuchin was the one that said it. Less than 1/4%. I'm sorry, less than 1/4 of the entire relief bill actually went towards this. Some of it went towards coronavirus relief, but then stuff went to, Congress got a raise out of it. Mm-hmm. They got another raise. It's like during this pandemic, you gave yourself a raise.
Space Force gets money. I mean, there's not a program that's not getting a ton of money from this.
Yeah,
a government program or many private programs as well. The madness never ends, Remso. Where do you see all this going? I want to kind of wrap things down here, but what I don't know. Why don't maybe give me your predictions on the next 6-12 months? Where do you think? Are we going to be sitting here on a podcast just living it up and working remote jobs in 12 years, or are we going to be, I don't know, are we even going to have internet? Where's this all going to go?
I think Disney's going to own everything.
I think you're pretty right.
I think we're going to start seeing Walmart buy Disney.
Right.
Food by Disney. Toilet paper by Disney. I genuinely
Lions
think.
of Liberty by
Disney.
The Washington Times brought to you
by Disney. Like, I genuinely think Disney is going to do that. I mean, people need to understand this about Disney. They're not really an entertainment company. When you look at how they're trading on the stocks, they're a telecommunications company. Mm-hmm. Disney and McDonald's, I genuinely think that McDonald's and Disney are going to go at war with each other over.
Yeah, McDonald's is really a real estate company more than anything else.
Yeah, I see McDonald's buying up more real estate. As more stores close, I see McDonald's buying it, even if they don't put a McDonald's in every row at your local strip mall. They're going to own basically everything. I mean, I think this is really one of those moments where it's like the American entrepreneur is on the run. The small business owner is going to be an endangered species, more so now than ever. And if you were thinking that you could, work a minimum wage job, low skill, and if you just vote the right way, someone's going to save you, you're already doomed. So I don't think things are getting better.
McDonald's is kind of evilly, geniusly brilliant in how they operate. They buy the most, the best properties you can buy in terms of traffic, and then they give out franchises to people, but they say, by the way, in order to do this franchise, you got to use one of our properties that we own and, lease that for a separate thing. So the franchise is only a small part of it. Really, all their money is really from this kind of forcing everyone into using their real estate.
Absolutely.
Which I kind of respect in a wow, that's a pretty impressive, no one even really realizes it kind of scheme.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm using my UBI check to get a gun. I'm going to get another one because why not? So, I mean, there are some silver linings.
I'm going to have to put mine on the credit card, I guess.
Ouch.
Well, Remso, it's been a blast. Why don't you just, I know you got a lot of stuff to plug. Hopefully the Witching Hour series is coming back at some point in some form. I'm sure at some form. It'll eventually, it'll be out soon. On YouTube at least.
It'll be out soon. I'm hoping that maybe it'll be out by around June, but worst case scenario, you might just throw it online. I'm probably saying something that's going to get me in trouble later with one of the outlets. Like, you can't threaten that. It's like, whatever. But folks, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, Instagram at Hey Remso. On the Run with Remso W. Martinez is. My new show at We Are Libertarians comes out in about a month. So check out all
Look at you. See, this is like Disney buying everybody up. Now We Are Libertarians is buying up all the podcasters. I'm still waiting for my offer, Chris Spangle.
I mean, you got to work with what works. But yeah, hey, Remso on all platforms. Mark, thanks.
Don't forget the book. Come on, you got to promote the book.
Well, I'm at it.
Do I have to do all the work for you here?
Nobody's buying anything anymore. But hey, if you're bored, we've got How to Succeed in Politics and Other Forms of Devil Worship available in print and ebook, and the audiobook is coming out whenever Amazon gets back to me, because I have to pray that Amazon will get back to me in time. We've also got the other book, Stay Away from the Libertarians, Comedic History of the Modern Libertarian Movement post Ron Paul, all that.
Includes it as a brief discussion of Lions of Liberty as well.
The origin.
Officially in the history books. Remso, thanks a lot, man. Keep up the great work. I know that no matter what happens here, you will be out there punditing and doing what you do until the very end.
I've got as many jobs as Jamaican. They just keep coming. Take care, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Remso. Keep up the great work, man. Keep on roaring. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with that little whippersnapper, Remso W. Martinez. I do want to mention one thing, one extra plug for him. I recently had a nice long chat with Remso because one other thing he also does as a recently published author, he offers consultations for authors and prospective authors at a very, very reasonable rates. And I don't want to give anything away about my future plans, but let's just say I just had one of those with him, and it was absolutely great, extremely informative. He's been through so much trying to publish 2 books on his own that he's just learned such an incredible amount of information and advice for people looking to write a book. And I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying, well, you can read into it however you want. That's all I will say. But I really enjoyed talking to Remso. I really enjoy doing this live format, hopping on without a real script, without a real plan, and just letting things go. So expect to see a lot more of the live stuff. That's why you got to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. We do a bunch of live streams on there now. And of course, if you're a part of the Pride, if you're one of our supporters on Patreon, at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty, you get access to all bunch of extra live streams we do. Almost every bonus show is included as a live stream to that group. And the perks on our Patreon just keep going up from there. Almost every level at $10 or higher includes some sort of free merchandise. At 25 months or higher, you get to join us for a weekly conference call, our Mufasa level call. We have a blast on that one. We also have our new Nittany level group where once a month, a $50 per month member gets to choose a topic for a show. Last month, that resulted in the Wild 420 show I did with Howie, Carr and Bird of the Friends Against Government, and Dexter De La Paz of the Gaslight Hour. What a blast that was, by the way, episode 452, if you missed that one. But the point is, we are always looking for creative ways to provide value to the people that send us money, that support this show, that keep us going, that keep us producing this great content, that enable us to have the ability to host 2 Libertarian Party presidential debates next week. Again, I'm so excited. This coming Wednesday, May 6th, 8 p.m. Eastern at facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. And then the second debate will be this coming Friday, May 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Again, live streamed at facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. And keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears open. There's a pretty good chance I'll be speaking with Justin Amash sometime next week in one form or another as well. This is all thanks to the Lions of Liberty Pride. This is all thanks to our Patreon and the people that support us and the people that have kept us going, and even the people that just tune in and listen and download and continue to encourage us and share the show and leave us those 5-star reviews on iTunes and hit that subscribe button. All of that stuff has led us to this point where we're in such a great position to be growing and spreading the ideas of liberty. So I want to thank everyone out there in these tough times who have been supporting us. We actually gained a ton of new Patreon supporters last month in a time where a lot of people are getting hurt financially. So it just means so much that people are willing to chip in. And the bonus, the extra bonus, is that you also get to help our friends at DonorSee help people around the world with various charities. I'm hoping to report on a few of the specific projects we're going to be funding from our April earnings a little bit later this week. So stay tuned for that. I'll try to check in with Gret and provide a little update on some of those projects as well. My friends, it has been an absolute great time. Rest up. Get ready for Electric Liberty Land on Wednesday. And of course, Felony Friday on Friday. But you're going to get a double bonus each of those days if you tune into our Facebook page, facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. You're going to get not 1, but 2 Libertarian Party presidential debates. I am so freaking excited about it. I cannot wait. Until then, my friends, live long and live free.